It's just interesting, and people get hung up on the fact that the title includes Stevie Nicks' name, who actually lives in Scottsdale, the road. And so, you know, just thinking about her. She's kind of this cosmic spirit in the rock world.
In a heart full of hornets, he drives off the cliff into the blue, into the blue. Not even
I was playing this old thrift store guitar, and it evoked this spirit and this sound and feel that was a lot, you know, a lot different than a lot of the other songs on our records. The rhythm itself kind of reminded me of a Fleetwood Mac kind of Rumors era groove. So I just thought, you know, for now I'll just call it Not Even Stevie Nicks.
for a little while. Not even she could save him. Not even she could save him. They found him inside the motor.
Growing up in California near the cliffs, there was always these stories about people driving off the cliffs and crashing into the rocks below. And as a kid, I, you know, wind up going down there and playing in the tide pools, as well as these, you know, automobiles that were, you know, just wrecks. And so the imagination would always kind of start spinning whenever you go down and hike down the cliffs to the water. So I just kind of thought about that, and the idea of driving off of a cliff and into the blue, you know, I mean, part of me thinks there's something positive in that. And I know it definitely sounds like this guy is taking his own life into his hands, but maybe it's symbolic, you know, and maybe it's not so literal. Maybe just abandoning everything that he's been in the past and just starting anew, and maybe just going somewhere else.
I think the desert, or specifically this desert, which is the Sonoran Desert, when it's a dry heat, it hits your bones in a way that it's like welding or something. It's like you feel like it's all kind of solidifying or healing. It's a very healing feeling. And that's what stuck with me when I came out here the first time.
It is important being here in Tucson. Writing some of these songs during the summertime, I'd go to the, you know, the cafe or the market, look at the paper, and boom, on the front cover, you know, more innocent people dying out there of dehydration. And it just, all these things just started affecting me, and wondering, you know, what's going on here? Who is at fault? Which side? Is it the fault of the immigrants or Mexico? Is it the fault of the United States? So I think a lot of that sentiment went into some of the making of this album, and especially on songs like Across the Wire.
Brother still sleeping, rumbles his bloodline, yeah. If you want a new life, what's a few minutes wait? Some say, new day.
In looking at Feast of Wire as kind of a departure from the other albums, I'd say that there's a lot more time taken in the making of the album. That's a big part. And in doing so, we thought about, you know, should we continue on with some kind of similar sounds or similar styles of music? And of course, the thought that comes to mind is no, let's try doing some different things. And I think any band that gets pegged with any kind of characteristic that they're known for, you know, you have to challenge that, and you have to go beyond that description. title of the album, Feast of Wire, I guess, you know, I was thinking a lot about this book by Harry Crews that John had mentioned, Feast of Snakes. And I mentioned it to John. I was talking on the phone with Victor at the same time.
Actually, Victor, the guy who does the artwork. I think I heard Joey talking to him on the phone, and I was saying, what about Feast of Snakes, Across the Wire, you know, and we were throwing it out to Victor, and I think Victor said Feast of Wire.
And not only is Victor Gaslam important to our look, I'm always wanting him to get more involved with everything, whether it's just the artwork or just talking about what's going on in the world, be it at home or in the globe. He's kind of got this angst to him, you know. But at the same time, he's really, he's a very real person. He's very, you know, kind of just likes to do his job and does it well. The concept of a feast of wires could mean anything from, you know, the actual border itself, where we live, but it also, you know, it alludes to this kind of movement towards technology and how the world is advancing it and accelerating at a rapid rate. And especially in looking at the element of technology for a country like the United States and being next to a country like Mexico and being such a huge difference, I felt like there is something interesting there with this idea of a feast of wire. Maybe as one is feasting, the other is starving.
I think a big departure from the black light and hot rail is not so much a reliance on this mariachi influence as in terms of mariachi format. When we were in the studio recording Black Light, we heard actual mariachi orchestras, you know, that the studio was recording before us. And I think with Hot Rail as well, we took that even a little bit further and kind of made it more Spanish or more of like this grandiose kind of, you know, bullfight. For this record, there's not that kind of fanfare, you know. We didn't go in there with that intention, you know. And we knew that we had a lot more time. Writing songs, there's no set pattern. There's times when Joey definitely got this part on guitar and he's like, this is the way it goes, play drums to it. Other times it's like, we're playing at the same time and there's actual ground being covered that neither one of us know. You know, we're finding a path. Probably my favorite part of what was coming out of this record is that we had been applying these things, these techniques intentionally, and then learning them and then kind of disremembering.
On this album, credited Craig Schumacher as being a producer along with John and I. And he spent a lot of time on this record and put a lot of his heart and his thought into the songs, into the production, into the mixing. And he has a real passion for not only just getting the best sounds, but in creating an environment.
So we are inside of Wavelab Studio, which Craig Schumacher here owns and operates, and has done so for many a year. It seems like it. And we've recorded a lot of albums here. The Black Light album, the Hot Rail album, Giant Sands albums, a lot of albums. Richard Buckner, we've recorded with him here. Nico Case, Jenny Toomey, who else?
Bill Janovic, Barbara Manning.
Bill Janovic, Barbara Manning. You can come here, relax, kick your feet up on the furniture.
Take off your shoes.
Take off your shoes. You know, you can
Spill a beer.
spill a beer. You can
Bring your
walk
dog.
down the street. It's centrally located.
Bring your dog.
Spill a beer.
That's going on for sure. That's gonna be the outtakes at the end. You guys.
Blackheart started right in the studio, and not just with John and I, but with our whole touring band. So we had, we were doing something we had never done before as Calexico. I had this idea of bringing in a strings section, professional strings section, members of the Tucson Symphony Orchestra, to bring them in and to see what they could do. And I asked John, I called him on the phone, I said, what do you think about putting strings on the song? It's going to be kind of alluding to that Led Zeppelin, Kashmir, kind of era of strings. And he's like, yeah, go for it.
Blackheart is a song that was very cathartic for me to play. I think there was specific feelings we wanted to get out with this record. I definitely expressed to Joey, it's been a rough couple of years. I want to, I really like the way this particular song releases that anger.
Watching unjust claims, one man's righteousness is another man's law.
In regards to the lyrical meaning of Blackheart, I'm not sure if it means someone's on death row or someone's on his last dying, breath. I feel like there's some element of desperation in trying to overcome difficulty in someone's life and trying to persevere where normally there would be a lot of judgment.
This friend of ours plays a lot of traditional songs from South America, playing a very specific instrument called a Quattro. He actually gave Joey this instrument. It's basically like a ukulele. It's 4 strings, very simple, very small, has this high-pitched sound to it. And so that is an example of where an instrument becomes an inspiration for a song.
We kind of came up with this different kind of beat and tempo that we hadn't really tapped into before. It just had this feeling of movement and feet and just constant running. And I was doing some reading about the Tarahumara Indians. They're most notably known for being these incredible adept runners. They go deep into the hills of the Sierra Madre Occidental in Mexico, and it's kind of a place where it's hard to get to, and it's kind of their salvation. It's kind of their, it's their sacred ground.
In the hills where the tall weed grows, hands are tied and I won't let go. Can't escape this place without leaving the world behind.
be interesting to see kind of how the songs change as we go on the road and interpret the songs. They will change. And that is part of the joy of taking these songs and putting them into a new context. I love the studio, but then playing them live, it turns into a whole nother environment and a whole nother way of interpreting the music.